Welcome to the Dream Architect Life podcast. I'm Brian Sweet, and I'm really excited today. I've got an old friend on today, Randy Carver. And Randy and I probably go back, geez, I bet it's been 30 years or more. Wouldn't you say, Randy?
Yeah, at least 30.
Yeah. Well, let me give you just a really quick background, and as we get going, his story will kind of, speak for itself. But I've known Randy from my days back at Raymond James, and Randy is one of the most successful financial advisors I've had the opportunity to spend time with. Randy's the number one guy at Raymond James. He's also in the Barron's top 1,200 advisors and always on everybody's list of top financial advisors across the country. One of the really unique things about Randy is just his endless energy. And a number of years back, probably 10 already, Randy and I started what we call the Elite Wealth Advisor Symposium, where we try to educate and train other financial advisors in the field. And that's been a fun thing. Really got a chance to know Randy more. And I also wanted to just give Randy a plug for this amazing book called Limitless. And what a great title. It's all about Randy's story. And I just have found it fascinating. And this podcast is all about, dreaming big and how anybody, if you have the right mindset, can have success however you would define it in your life. And if anybody's had some bad things happen, it probably is Randy Carver. So, with that, Randy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Good to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. Well, what I'd love you to do, and you've got such a unique background, but maybe give us a little bit of your story and how you kind of got started and where you're at today, and then we'll just kind of dig into it from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story, so I'll kind of summarize. I mean, I think really it starts as a child. I was scheduled to be an outward bound instructor when I was 11. And part of that was taking a physical. And they found a mass in my chest, which turned out to be misdiagnosed um, as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so as a result, I missed 3 years of school with chemotherapy, radiation, bunch of surgeries, took out my spleen, my thymus, my left lung, top of the right lung, had a bunch of stuff. Um, so I missed a lot of school, but I became very interested in financial services. This is before internet and all that stuff. So basically, I read the Wall Street Journal. I ended up starting a number of businesses, including a home kind of renovating company when I was 17, and about 21 guys working for me. And I really debated going to college or not. But my parents, who were very educated, Harvard, Duke, um, Stanford, really pushed to go to college. So I ended up going to Oberlin, which is a very expensive place. And I had a bunch of jobs. But one of the things I started to do was borrow professors' money to invest in silver futures to pay, using their money as 10% margin, which looking back was kind of crazy. And the fact they give me their money. But long story short, several of them said, you should actually teach at Oberlin. I said, okay, I'll teach a class, I'll get some credits. And obviously, when you teach, one of the easiest things to bring a guest speaker in. So I brought in a guy named Brent Barkley. At the end of the class, I said, what are you going to do when you graduate? So I'm going to go back to Canada and fix houses. He said, you should get in this industry. And he worked for a company that I had never heard of called Edward Jones. So one of my other jobs was I was doing resumes for people. I had one of the first portable computers. So I printed up a resume, gave it to him, and then went off and did 3 interviews with their people. 2 weeks later, they said, we're not going to hire you. And at that point, I was really interested, mainly just to get hired so I could turn them down. Because I hate hearing the word no. I mean, I really don't like no at all, as you're aware. So um, I found out that one of the guys thought I was too young. I was 20. One of them had quit, probably not because of me, and one was on the fence. But Brent's cousin, Cal, was a limited partner with the firm, was going to have an open house about a week later in Illinois. And Ted Jones was going to be there. So I rented a car. I drove to Illinois. And he agreed I could stay in the office because I had no money. And I got there the afternoon before the event, and the receptionist was in tears. And it's like, what's wrong? Well, she was supposed to finish painting the place or have it done for this huge event. The mayor was coming, 300 people, and her brother had had an accident, so she didn't have it done. So I said, you know what? And again, this is before the big box stores. So we found a hardware store, got a bunch of paint, and I painted for probably 12 hours all night to get the office done. In the morning, it was done. And Cal was extremely happy. So now guests start to come. And one of the first guests was the head of recruiting for Edward Jones. And he went ballistic that we're circumventing their system. And I screaming, turning red. We're circumventing the system. There's a reason. Well, while Cal was trying to calm him down, I cornered Ted Jones and basically talked him into hiring me. So that's a long story into how I got in the business. Now,
Yeah.
I will tell you, I started with them. I knocked on 20,000 doors to get started. And now, it's, what are we, 39 years later, we got a $3.5 billion business and we're doing okay.
Yeah. Well, Randy, you are so amazing in what you do, especially with all the things that you have overcome in your life, and in addition to all the medical things and that you have had and have even today still fight, if you will. Your determination is probably the greatest that I've ever seen. And one of the things that I love to talk to people about is life's full of, failure and disappointment and things don't go right. And you've had, I would tell you, more of those things happen than probably any human should, have. So how is failure, if you want to call it failure, shaped your life, and how has that motivated you? And what would be some of the suggestions when things don't go the way that you want, to use it as a positive instead of, a negative?
Well, I mean, I think there's always a way to use something to your advantage. Um, and you're going to learn from it at the very least. It's not that everything's going to be easy. I mean, the reality is success is a lot like losing weight. I mean, losing weight's easy. Eat less calories than you burn off. So it's very simple. It's not easy because we got a country full of fat people running around. But it takes, I mean, first of all, some knowledge of what to do, but it takes the discipline and persistence to do it. And so, I started with Jones. That was 1987, right before the market crash. Market crash is great opportunity because basically I could say to people, have you lost money with your advisor? Which clearly market crash. Maybe you should talk to us because we haven't. We didn't because we didn't have any clients. Of course, we didn't lose any money. Then in 1989, in March, I was in a plane crash, broke my neck. I couldn't speak at all. And so when you're trying to sell, that's very difficult. But again, it helps you listen more. Now, you may disagree that I listen because I still have a hard time doing it. but I literally could not speak for a year. And so I would write notes to an assistant that would speak for me. But again, it helps you become a lot more effective in your communication, becomes a lot better at kind of listening to people. Um, so I think there's almost anything, at the very least, you can learn from, if not turn to your advantage. But it is about persistence. You just gotta keep going if you want something. Of course, the other thing, as you said, is people have to know what they want. I think one of the biggest problems is people don't have a clear picture of what success means to them. And so if you don't know what you want in the future, there's no way to know if your actions today are consistent with doing it. You could be doing, and it's not about the tools or where you're at. For example, it's a dumb example, but if you or I, if I said we need to meet in New York, that's an easy destination to get to. If I just said we're going to meet in the United States, well, that's kind of hard. And so if you had a Ferrari, great vehicle, and I had just a piece of crap beater car, but I knew where I was going, I'm probably going to get there first. And so it's not about the circumstances, the tools, any of that. I think it is really important to have a really clear vision of what you want, and just be relentless about chasing it.
How would you, how do you suggest going about, writing up or thinking about, the vision, if you will? Do you have any tricks or things that have worked for you that you could share with the audience that you found that's been really, really helpful to help one, understand what they are, but then two, keep you motivated to actually attain them?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you always hear about Harvard Business Class that five of them wrote down their goals and did better, which is kind of an urban legend because it didn't happen. But no, I mean, for me, it's just knowing, well, first of all, I think it's picking things that are pretty outrageous because even if you don't hit the target, you're going to achieve way more than you would have otherwise. So I think setting almost impossible goals for yourself is really the key for me. Although we've done everything we pictured, at some point, sometimes takes a little longer, but we always get there. So I think, but again, we work, both of us, people that are retiring. I think a lot of people before they retire, if you ask them what's your day going to look like once you're retired, they can't answer that. That's a problem. Um, so to me, if someone's struggling, I think just sit down and think about, maybe what's important to you, first of all, more than you want. Because a lot of the things, whether it's money or time, they're going to be byproducts of achieving what you want to achieve.
I loved your thought about there's not really a goal too big. It's just maybe the time frame that you gave it isn't long enough.
Yeah.
And so I love that because that is a really great perspective. And of so many people that I'm fortunate enough to hang around, you truly are one of the like bigger dreamers or bigger thinkers on what's possible. So maybe give me a little explanation of like what does dreaming big mean to you, or how do you go about setting what you might say are kind of like almost impossible goals?
But not only it's a process, I don't even think it's a conscious decision. But I'll tell you what happens, which is amazing, is once you've achieved a couple things, you believe you can achieve anything. I mean, nothing's impossible. I was told when I was 11 that I was going to die in 6 months. It's like, well, clearly not. Um, when we started the business, we started with nothing basically. 2 years ago, I said I want to grow our business by $1 billion. We did. Um, So I think, sometimes you get what you think, and it's not a conscious thing. Now, don't get me wrong. You have to take action. If you sit and look at a garden, say no weeds, no weeds, you're still going to get weeds. I mean, you got to deal with it a little bit. But I certainly see people that are very positive. Success gets success, I guess, is what I see a lot of. That's again, this is all easier said than done, or everybody be tremendously successful. But I think setting out some things that you want to do both short term and long term. One thing that I have found, and maybe it's silly, but it's probably because I got ADHD and maybe I couldn't sit long enough for the test, so I'm not sure. But um, the writing out the most important things you have to do tomorrow, the day before. That's been incredibly helpful because I will literally log in to do something, see an ad. Last week, somebody bought a flamethrower. I'm not sure how, but it was so cool. Um, so I'm totally distracted all the time. So writing out, these are the things I have to do. The other thing is first thing in the morning, do the hardest things first, you know.
Totally agree. Yeah.
The last thing, um, there's a couple of books we'll mention, and one's called The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. And it's not necessarily just about getting up at 5 a.m. There's a lot to the book. But I will tell you, most successful people that I know get up about 5 a.m. and they'll either do gym or journaling or thinking that they all work out. And then they're doing stuff. For me, that's my time to write because I write a lot. And then you're into your day. But getting up earlier, huge. Writing down the most important stuff that you have to do, really important and really effective, at least for me.
Hey, Brittany here. In case you hadn't heard, our latest book, Dream Architecture, is available for the taking. Think about it like this. What is your biggest, wildest dream of what retirement could look like? Not the dream that your friends have, or your parents maybe had, or your coworkers. Your best dream, the unreasonable one, the one that you might have trouble admitting even to yourself. So that is what the Dream Architecture book is about. Hop on over to dreamarchitecturebook.com so you can start dreaming big today.
Do you find yourself at the end of the day, going through the day and saying, well, these are the wins I had, or gee, these are the things that I'm grateful for? Anything like that that you actually do at the end of the day after you've accomplished whatever you've accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, I should do that more. Um, I think, I think about it a little bit, but I'm not setting aside time. Say, this is my half hour to look at what didn't work and what did work. I think I'm constantly doing that, um, kind of throughout the day. But I mean, ultimately, I think success to me is in how many people you help, whether it's on your team or your clients or whatever it is. I mean, in our industry, we literally can save lives. It's almost better than what some doctors can do because you can affect people on all kinds of levels. Um, and so that's incredibly rewarding. I think, honestly, someone can be good at something they don't like. They can make some money at it, but they're never going to be great or extraordinary. That's the other thing. I think we're talking a lot about what people, their process is to succeed, but I think you got to be doing something you love. Because if you don't, you're just never going to be extraordinary at it.
Yeah. And it made me think in your book, chapter 11, you write that the chapter title is The Three Things You Need to Be Happy and 33 Other Keys to Living Your Best Life.
Yeah.
So you wrote, I have found the three things to be happy are something to do, something to love, and something to look forward to.
Yes.
And I mean, it's kind of that simple to a certain extent, and that kind of alludes to what you just said.
I think. The other thing is definitely having things to look forward to that you enjoy, whether it's a trip or it's dinner or something. At the end of the day, that's really important, kind of rewarding yourself and not beating yourself up. Um, I mean, as you know, we do a ton of marketing stuff and people think it's crazy and they say, oh, everything works. Oh, yeah, they don't see the 9 things we tried that didn't work. Um, so, I think I'd rather try things and find out. The other mistake I think people make is they overanalyze stuff. Um, I think, a good plan today is better than the perfect plan tomorrow. Just go for it. If it doesn't work, so what? Did you die? If you did, doesn't really matter. If you didn't, then try something else. Um,
Yeah, I think that's really, really so true. I mean, the key is taking action and then just seeing what the results are.
yeah.
I think somebody called it like the 80% rule, where you get something like 80% accurate and then, release it and see what happens. And no one knows what, 100% looks like, including yourself. So you really can't fail too much. And it's good market research by doing that. So one of the things you also alluded to earlier, Randy, is a book, but I know you're just an avid reader. And would you say reading has been also very helpful in your success in keeping your mindset, so sharp and in tune to the right things, especially when maybe disappointing things happen?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll admit, I read too much fiction and not enough practical stuff. But I think a couple of the books you've mentioned, the one I really liked was Relentless. Um, Phenomenal book. Good to Great to Relentless, as opposed to the Jim Collins Good to Great, which is also a good book. But this is Tim Grover, which I'd recommend that book to anybody for anything, because it does point out a lot of success is just grinding it out. Um, so the ordinary people that consistently do good things are going to be very successful. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of times people just give up too early, and the success is right around the corner,
it is.
but for whatever reason they got frustrated and gave up or quit or whatever. And I think failure or not getting discouraged are just such a part of what anybody goes through. I mean, there's not a straight ride up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And, what we do and how we act and what we think about when those things occur, I think is really a big part of what separates those that, have succeed, have such great success like you versus somebody that maybe, does hasn't, reached that pinnacle yet. So, any other thoughts on, what people should do when they get discouraged, or are there any other things that you do that help you, turn that around quickly and get you headed in the right direction?
Well, I mean, I guess the first part of it's before something goes wrong. If you're going to attempt something, maybe think about what's the worst thing that could happen. Is that going to kill you or not? If it doesn't, who cares? So if it does happen, okay, it happened and we'll pivot. Um, but no, it's a difficult thing, but that's where having something to look forward to is helpful. It's like, yeah, it's been a terrible day, but I get to go, concert, fishing, whatever your thing is. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Literally anything that you have happen during the day, even if it's a really terrible day, if you think about it, something good happened, and
yeah,
kind of get that gratitude, hat on, if you will, and I think that's just kind of critical. And are you always trying to learn? I already know this, but learn new things. I know
of
you,
course.
you have so many interests, and I think that's part of what you were talking about with something to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look forward to something, an event or an activity to me. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think you have to, it's an interesting question because to me, how would people not be interested in doing things? Um, no, that's something to look forward to me, is more of a dinner, concert, trip, that type of thing. Um, I think the other thing is you can't get yourself in such a spiral. And that's where people really go wrong. So they obsess about it, they don't learn from it, and they just depress themselves. And that's hard to get out of. Um,
Hmm.
you just can't let it get to that point. And again, even if you have a day where nothing went right, nothing good happened, it's done. You got
Yeah.
another day tomorrow. Um, let's fix it tomorrow. Have a better one. So,
Yeah.
and that's tough. All of this, it's very easy to sit here and say, and it's very tough to do. But anybody is capable of doing any of this.
Yeah, I think the word fear, comes into play a lot. What's going to be the actions, and probably, 95% of the time, what we think's going to happen never happens. So I think your comment about asking yourself, what's the worst thing that could occur if I were to do this? Anything short of like, it killing you is probably worth trying if
Well,
it's something that's going to move you forward to something that is a goal or a big objective of yours.
and I can't remember which of the Stoics, I think it was Socrates, basically said, worry, if you worry, you lose twice because you waste all this time worrying, and it may or may not even happen. It
Yeah.
doesn't. It's wasted time. It does. All the time you could have been enjoying, you wasted worrying about it. So, um, I think again, that's a big problem for a lot of people. Now, the reality is, I mean, you mentioned fear. Fear is just a perception. I mean, if you think about it, the circumstances don't dictate your reaction to you. So, for example, if you were deathly afraid of snakes, and I really like snakes, and we're walking and a snake pops out, you might be terrified. I might think it's super cool. It's the same snake. It's the same situation. And so I think we have to start to realize whether it's fear or being worried, um, which is someone once told me worry, just negative goal setting, which I thought was a great.
Mm.
Because basically you just think about what's the worst or what's the best. Um, but it just wastes a lot of energy. So I think you got to start to realize and no amount of logic will fix that. In other words, if someone's afraid to fly, I could give them all the statistics about it's more dangerous driving than flying. They're still going to be afraid to fly. It's not going to fix it. So logic isn't going to fix any of this stuff. You have to get in your own head and start to work through and say, yeah, I'm going to try this or take this chance. If it doesn't work, okay, I'll try something else. Um, and it really is as simple as that.
Yeah, and sometimes just, facing the fear head on where, in your case, picking up a snake as long as you know it's not a deadly one and, bite you, for example, can help you overcome come these things. People with heights that do different things, and after they've had the experience, they realize that gee, it really wasn't, as bad as I thought. And so, yeah, I think that's a really good point because fear, or at least the perception of fear, really limits us a lot. And, life is short and you want to try and accomplish as much as you possibly can in the short time that we're given here. With all the things that you've had happen and all the business successes, what would you say is maybe the most difficult lesson that you've learned in business? Is there one thing that jumps out, or you can maybe not business,
You
but
know,
maybe even
and
life?
you're going to get this right away. It's delegating stuff. You got to let go of some things. Now, I'm still not good at it as you are. But there's no way to be super successful without a team. There's only 24 hours in a day. So you got to build a team. And if you build a team, there's kind of, I think, three stages. The first one is you start to delegate some things, but you're still involved. Then the second thing is you let them take some ownership. But the third thing is delegating leadership, where they're really designating what's going to happen and what the path is. And that's the hardest thing to do. But if you're going to scale anything, I think that's the only way to do it. Because I don't sleep a lot, but there's only so much time. You can't do everything. And I do think, as much as I joke about it, I think sleep is important. I'm not saying you need 8 hours, but at least 6 or 7 hours of sleep, I think makes people way more productive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think figure out what to delegate and what not to. Now, what I will tell you, and I've had this conversation with my guys, or there are things you may want to keep, doesn't make the most sense, but you just enjoy it and you're good at it. So do it. If you like building invitations for events, which I do, should I have a graphic artist doing it? Probably. But I like doing it, so I'm going to do it. So, yeah, I think that's probably the toughest thing.
Yeah, that's really well said, and I think we all have difficulty. I heard one time that what you want to do is be in charge, but not necessarily in control. So give control to others and let them do what their, unique abilities are, and you be the overriding person with the vision of, what does success, or what does the firm look like when it's, hit its peak, if you will. So. Yeah, I mean, it's the things that you do, like I said, are amazing, and I have learned so much from you over the years. And I'll personally thank you right here on the podcast for all the great stuff that I've learned from you. So, what are you working on now, Randy? What would be like your biggest dreams or aspirations for the future? I always love to ask that question of big thinkers, because I hear some amazing things. So I'd love to get your perspective on what has Randy Carver got in the future.
I mean, we've got two things we've been working on. One, I want to keep growing the business, obviously. We're expanding it. I will tell you, we are at a very interesting point in time, especially for financial services, but for any service business, whether it's accountants or lawyers. The fact is that the technology, AI can replace most of the technical skills already. And in the next 2, 3 years, all of them. And not just that, they can do it better than most of us can. If we take the financial planning, there are tools today that will monitor multiple portfolios, allocate, do tax swaps, do estate, do tax, notify you with recommendations, and it all costs almost nothing. So the question you have to ask yourself if you're in business, or if you work for a business, is what value are you adding that cannot take away? The better way to put it is, if you died today, who's going to miss you? Because if they're not going to miss you, you can be replaced today. And so, financial services, there's less advisors. The average age is over 70. It's crazy. Huge amounts of wealth changing hands. $84 trillion in the next 10 years. 14 trillion in private businesses changing generations or changing hands in the next 5 years. So, the question with that is, how do you take advantage of that? So for us, when I look at our practice, we've always been based on creating experiences for clients. It's not about investments planning. In fact, my guys hate it when I say it. I mean, we're basically a experienced firm that does some financial planning, not the other way around. Um, so we're focusing on that, and I think we're going to grow. I want to double my assets in the next 3 years, um, without adding a ton of staff, without acquiring. The second thing is, for years, we would have people donate food for our events, and we'd give it to the local food banks and things. About 4 years ago, actually during COVID, I realized that at best we were treating a symptom, and at worst we were just enabling people, that we weren't fixing the problem. And I live in a pretty wealthy county where there's hundreds of people that are food challenged. It just didn't make sense. So my goal was to end hunger and homelessness in my county, 100% for people. So we started an initiative called the New Beginning Initiative. And the idea is if someone's willing to work, we're going to support it. When we started out, because I tried to figure out why is this happening, talked to a lot of nonprofits, and what came out was there are three big challenges. First of all, it's hard to get to jobs. Transportation. People can't get there because we don't have public transportation. The second thing is if they got any kind of money working, they'd often lose their benefits that were worth more money than what they're getting. So it didn't make sense to work, which is crazy. And the third thing was training. And then the big one was daycare. They couldn't afford it. They didn't have a place to put kids. So we started, it'll be 3 years in July, the organization New Beginning Initiative. The idea that anybody that needed help with housing, daycare, transportation, we would cover it. And it's amazing, Brian. A small amount of money can make a huge, huge difference. We had a guy, he had a decent job, 2 kids, he's living with his girlfriend. They had one car. They break up, so he's homeless, basically. And now he has no way to get to work, so he's going to lose his job. And he had nobody to watch the kids. So we ended up, he would have ended up, fully on assistance. We ended up, he got in with a place that's a homeless shelter, basically. And then we provided transportation to the job. And in 2 months, he had enough money to get his own car. And now he's working. Kids are good. He's got a place. I think our total investment was maybe $3,000. So, the idea is we're going to help people that want to help themselves. They have to be working. So that's our other big, big push. I want to totally eliminate it. And it's funny, people ask, are you going to expand to Cleveland or no? I'm going to deal with my county, but I can build a model people can copy. So once I figure out how to do it. As far as I've seen, there's really nothing like that out there. The other thing is, for example, the daycare. We pay the daycare, so you don't lose your WIC or your food stamps. The money's not going to you. It's going to the daycare. So you get to keep all your benefits. So anyway, that's our other big, big project.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything like a website or anything for that, Randy, that people
Yeah,
could,
I'll send it to you. It's
we'll put that in the show notes so that people can use that as an example or, 'cause I think it's amazing what you're doing there. And I would encourage anybody that has similar thoughts. I mean, Randy's amazing at ideas and at getting them implemented. So yeah, we'll share that in the notes, but I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I appreciate it. I'm gonna read it off in a second. Um, the other thing I was going to say is a lot of people said it's impossible. You're not gonna, um, you can't do it, and yet we do it. The other thing is, 100% of the donated money goes to people. There's zero overhead. Because one of the things I looked at is instead of setting up a new 501(c)(3), we actually used infrastructure in place. So we go through the Salvation Army, does all the intake, etc. We have another organization with social workers, so we have no overhead, basically. And then on top of that, um, one of the things I found, nonprofits in our county weren't talking to each other. So two of them might be doing the same thing and nobody knew. So it was almost a logistics issue that needed solving. And then the last thing was we had a lot of employers. So it's really hard to find good people to work. And I had a bunch of people saying, I want to work, I can't find a job. So we built a local job board. One of my team built a website to pair people up. So yeah, it's newbeginninglc.org is the thing. Newbeginninglc.org.
Okay, and we'll put that in the show notes and whatnot, Randy. I appreciate that. I mean, one of the things that I found, and you're a great example, and lots of others that I've had the fortune of having on the podcast, being charitable or helping others is just a natural thing that they feel, leads to, their success, if you will. I mean, and people just feel like I get more out of it than the people I'm helping. And I just think that mindset is so helpful. And, it's just great when you can do something for others. And, especially what you're doing is like creating a whole new example of a movement, if you will, that really could take over and help so many others.
Yeah, it is a weird thing, I will tell you. It's interesting you say that because, so I said we did the food drives and things. Um, we never publicized anything or put out, releases. But the more we did that, the more successful we became. And I can't tie one to the other, but call it the law of reciprocity or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's very interesting that when people undertake these things, besides being personally fulfilling, um, you benefit. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, well, I mean, you're a great example of so many things that if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish it. And if you get a chance and you really want to read an inspiring book about Randy's life, as I mentioned earlier, Limitless is a really great book. And hard to believe, Randy, but our time is almost up here, and I could talk all day. And I'm fortunate I know so much about your history and your past, and fortunate to get to call you a friend and learn from you over the years. But before we wrap up, is there like one piece of advice that you would want to give to the listeners, or is there something I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you'd like to leave the audience with?
No, but I think you hit on it. That persistence is probably the most important skill, and everybody can have it. It's not about knowledge, it's not about circumstances, just being persistent in what you want. But I also think it's important knowing what you want, because otherwise you're just working hard and maybe in the wrong direction. Um, and again, as people listen, and I know I've said this several times, this is all much easier said than done, or else everybody be successful. But it's absolutely within your capacity to do any of this, because there's certainly no secret to it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Randy. And sometimes you just need examples of somebody that maybe had tougher roads to climb or a few more hurdles. And if anybody thinks that maybe they've got a tough road to hoe, just read Randy's book, and he's just talked about a few of the things he's overcome. I'm aware of several other things, having the fortune of working with Randy for a number of years. Um, he is so true. It's really about persistence and mindset and just hanging in there and doing the right thing. So with that, you are such a great example, Randy, and I really appreciate you being on the podcast today and sharing some of your wisdom and thoughts of, what anybody can do to hit a level of success that they've only dreamed about. Because instead of dreaming about it, just make it happen.
Well, as you said, and it's the last example, but just occurred to me. I think people think things are impossible till someone does them. The 4 minute mile said nobody could ever break it. And then the year Roger Bannister did it, a bunch of people did it. Because
Yeah.
now it's not impossible. So if something seems impossible, why not you be the one that breaks the 4 minute mile? That's because anybody can do anything if they really try.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, Randy. And you're such a great example of that. And I really want to thank you for being on the podcast today and wish you continued success. And I know for a fact that your goal of doubling the firm in 3 years, you'll probably have that done in two, knowing what I know about you. So best wishes on that. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity, Brian.
All right. We'll see you on the next episode of The Dream Architect Life. Thanks, everyone.